Salute and welcome to Wild Country Daily Entertainment. This article is from Celebrities. There's a clip where TMZ talks about on the ransom letter. In the beginning, people were saying that the ransom was saying that Nancy Guthrie allegedly died, and that's not true. It never said that she died. The Nancy Guthrie ransom note TMZ received was the real deal according to the FBI. But contrary to new reports, it did not contain an apology or a revelation she was dead. It didn't. I'm going to play this clip for you, and then you tell me what your thoughts are after this.
I want to talk about Nancy Guthrie and some communications I've had with the FBI that I haven't talked about until now. But I want to start with these reports that this ransom letter that we received kind of apologizes to Savannah Guthrie and her family for the kidnapping, and that Nancy was no longer alive. That was not in the ransom note that we received. It is not in that ransom note at all.
If you pay attention to the wording, he says, quite a bit. Like, are you telling the truth, guy, from TMZ, or are you making up things as it goes on because the case is getting hotter and hotter? Because if you guys didn't see, Chris McDonough from the interview room, him and his wife went live last night, and they found a couple new things that people who are covering the case should be going to this place and should be asking the right questions instead of sitting out in front of Nancy's all day. That's one of the things he said, Chris McDonough. If I were to do it, I would suggest that the streamers go down to a park that's not too far away from Nancy Guthrie's. It's a non-profit building owned by, or was operated by, Annie Guthrie. It's called the Splinter, or Splinters. Down there is a homeless encampment. A lot of homeless people get the word out, and they have a lot of info most of the times. So Chris McDonough was more or less telling people, look, if you want your answers, go there and search for your answers. It's called old school detective work. Now TMZ explains that it never said that she died in that ransom note. It never said that at all. That's what I'm playing. Because in the beginning, TMZ received a ransom note, and they're saying it was the real deal. But according to the FBI, the contrary to new reports, it did not contain apology or revelation she was dead. So now let's listen to this further. I just had a question of why does he say the guy from TMZ? He says quite a bit. Yeah, okay, I know it happened 4 months ago, but this should be in your head. I mean, the details should be, the details of this situation should be in your head, because you're the one that received the ransom note. You should know what it said word for word. Unless you're making things up and this story isn't even true. So is it true or is it not true? And is that why you're saying quite a bit? I don't know. Let's take a listen.
Well, it does say that she's scared, but okay. But the ransom note makes no reference to Nancy Guthrie either dying or the kidnappers apologizing. Now, there is a reference to Nancy Guthrie not being alive anymore, but that is from the person who sent us multiple emails saying that he knows or knew where Nancy Guthrie was and where the kidnappers were, and he wanted money in return for information. We passed that along to the FBI as we did the ransom note, but this person kept sending us emails, and early on he said time is of the essence, and then a few days after the kidnapping he said time is no longer of the essence, meaning she wasn't alive. So that's where that came from, not the people who kidnapped her, but from the person who was sending us these notes. Now that person wanted effectively $100,000. He actually reduced it.
Oh, so the people that did the ransom was saying that she wasn't dead. I mean that she was all of a sudden passed away. But in the beginning, no, she wasn't dead. She wasn't dead. The people that kidnapped her didn't say that. It's the person that did the ransom notes that said that. There's something else TMZ received close to a dozen emails from a man claiming he knew both the identity of the kidnappers and the location of Nancy. The initial email he sent just days after kidnapping said he would provide information in return for a single Bitcoin. But time is the essence. He made it clear he was not a kidnapper. The next day he sent another email. This is the ransom person, not the ones that kidnapped her. The next day he sent another email saying time is no longer of essence. Translation, Nancy was no longer alive. So how would the ransom person know that? If he's not the kidnapper, how would he know that Nancy was no longer alive? That's the question. How does the ransom person know this? If the ransom person didn't take Nancy, then how did they know that Nancy was no longer alive? That's the answer that we should be asking. How does this ransom person know that she's not alive no more? Especially if he's not the one that took her, or she. The man continued to send emails saying the kidnappers took Nancy to Mexico, which last night Chris McDonough came out and said, he is more thinking it's close by in a triangle type area. He said he needed money because he would have to go underground for fear of retribution. He was also concerned authorities might try to implicate him in the kidnapping. Nancy Guthrie's potential suspect. This is the images that they've been showing of the suspect, allegedly. We have been in touch with the FBI since the beginning when we received the ransom note. Around a month ago, we called the FBI and said we believed the person who was asking for the Bitcoin in return for information was authentic. Why would we say time is no longer of the essence? If it was a scammer would want to maintain urgency. Or would they? They're going to say, we told the FBI we wanted to do a documentary. Why a documentary? Why a documentary? And they're going to say, ask how the agency would feel if we paid the Bitcoin to see where it led. They're going to say we did not want to interfere with the investigation or the Guthrie family. So they're going to say we asked the FBI if that would be helpful. They said it was interesting and would get back to us. They go on to say, what's interesting, we have tried contacting the FBI a half dozen of times since, and they have ghosted us. They say the FBI has always been responsive and they genuinely want to solve this case, but for some reason this struck a nerve and we don't know why. Stay tuned. So let me know your thoughts and opinions on what you think is the truth. Do you think TMZ is telling the truth? And if so, why do you think they're telling the truth? Or do you think that they just made up the whole idea to do a documentary of some sort? Some documentaries aren't always true. It goes on their narrative. So whatever their narrative is, that's what the documentary is about. It could be true, it could be false, it could make it look like it's true, but it's just weird how TMZ allegedly gets all the information in the beginning of all these cases, these shooting cases, these kidnapping cases, whatever case it may be. Why is TMZ always the first to know? Could have it been? Nah, I'm not going to go there. Let me know what your thoughts are. Peace out.